If you said something at the basketball courts, come up here. I know over half of you guys said something. All right, I'll make it easier on us.
Oh, everyone who said something?
Yes.
Anyone who said something, how about that?
Yeah.
Because I know that it can be scary to come up here and talk in front of like 30, right?
I told you something. I didn't say it out loud.
All right. So I just want you guys to say whatever it is. It doesn't have to be long. If you guys just want to share like one sentence, that's fine. If you guys want to share a lot, that's fine too. But I want everyone in the room to be able to know what God did in your life because it's powerful. All right? I don't care who starts.
I'll start. Okay.
All right.
I'll start. So at the basketball court, I had talked about how I had struggled with, knowing what God has for my future, and He really spoke to me this weekend, just letting me know that He does have a plan for me, and one of the songs, it's called "Do It Again." It says, "You made a way when there was no way," and I think that really spoke to me because. Sometimes I think, oh, there's no way this will happen, or there's no way this will happen. But God reminded me that eventually He makes a way for it to happen. So, and then the second thing I shared that was a good illustration for me was when He said that like God will light your path for you. He might not show you A, B, C, D, E, but He'll show you A, and then once you are firm on that foundation, He'll show you the next one, and He'll show you the next one. So that's what.
That's really good. That is so true. There's so many times where you're just like, you want God to give you like the whole plan.
Right.
For
Especially
something.
like the instant gratification. Like you pray for something, you're like, I want it and I want it now. But sometimes you just have to be faithful, like you were talking about, and just take a step back and be like, yeah, eventually God will make a way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Love that.
I think Manny was my favorite speaker. Sorry, Sam, but Manny was my favorite speaker because he said a lot of things that were just like gut punches. I feel like for me and for a lot of people around me. So like, one thing that he said that I shared was, all your prayers start with I, and that was such a big thing for me. I was like, oh, they do. Like all of them are like, God, I need this. Like I need this to happen. The instant gratification thing. And he like kind of took a step back. He was like, just like what God wants. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to put into words. It's like, it was just very cool, like a very eye-opening thing. And also, he talked about getting comfortable in your faith, like you're comfortable in church.
Yeah.
Like you usually get called out for not wanting to raise your hands or not wanting to kneel or do anything. But he called out the people who were too comfortable in their faith, who go in, they know what to do, they know, they go through the motions.
Yeah.
I just think that was a really cool thing to point out.
Everybody looking at me.
Boys or girls? Who wants to go first?
Girl.
Okay, I'll go first.
Ladies first.
I mean, third. Okay, so I just said that, like, I worry a lot about things, and then he said, like, when you have anxiety about something, instead of praying about it, like, worship God. Because, like, when I do, I always, like, pray about it. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's challenging for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, is it my turn? So I feel like two things that I got taught this weekend are one that I shouldn't be like scared to like worship God, and that I should just like go for it, and like I shouldn't be worried to like tell my friends about God, because I mean it's not going to be a negative thing, it's always going to be something positive. And another thing is I get kind of scared to like worship during service, or like whenever we do worship and stuff, but I feel like that weekend it taught me that like instead of people like thinking like, oh, that's weird, I feel like in reality they think, oh, she's a leader, like it makes me feel more comfortable worshiping and stuff.
Yeah, I love what Maddie said. I remember what she said, that instead of thinking like, oh, what will they think about me if I raise my hands, instead it's like, oh no, let me lead by example and raising my hands so that way they do. And that's something that I've even seen like in here on Wednesday nights. You know, if you just think back like a couple of months ago, it was just like the crackheads who would like jump around during worship, you know, like us three, and a couple of these boys, you know, and everyone else kind of like, they're crazy. But now it's like everyone's jumping around and obviously we're not just jumping around just for hype, we're jumping around because of how great God is, but it's one of those things where it's like, you know, we didn't care what other people thought about us, you know, we probably looked like idiots to them, but now everyone's doing it, so I love what Maddie said, you know, and obviously raising your hands is different, but it's the same thing, you know, so I love that Maddie said that. We
So
love
I
candy.
have a lot of anxiety, which thanks but
What? No, I said we love Cam.
oh, maybe come on.
Oh no, it's great. No, we're your fan.
So I have a lot of anxiety, that's bit social anxiety, and I was almost not gonna come because I was scared, and
We're happy you came too, Cam. So glad you came.
yes, very happy. Okay, it's my turn.
Here we go. Cold money. Cold.
Yeah.
Money.
Okay.
Oh.
Thing that one-
That's cool, that was cool.
Let's start over.
Speak up.
He said you should practice when you speak in tongues, and like, cause like I haven't really been practicing and stuff. That part.
Yeah. For sure. It's so easy. If you have that spiritual gift, it's so easy to only use that, you know. It's like I only use that like two Wednesday nights a month, you know, if I'm feeling really spiritual. So that was definitely challenging.
Whenever one of the worship leaders, like, they were like singing a song, they said, you could raise your hands, it's just not to be cool, it's like to experience like God and everything. You know, that
Yeah.
it was that impactful.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, is there anyone else who wants to share? If you want to, you can just stay in your seat and share from there. Yeah, what's up, Chaser?
I had spoken in tongues for the first time.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, bro. That's great.
One thing that Pastor Manny, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. He said, like, he talked about how David, when he fought Goliath, he had his sling, and he, like, that, his Goliath was the thing, like, his fear, and, like, we have Goliath in our lives, and he had his eyes set on the sword, and after he defeated Goliath and took the sword, that was the only thing he ever used, and, like, God doesn't just give us swords, he gives us obstacles and giants we have to overcome to take
Yeah.
the sword.
Yeah,
That was one thing that really,
yeah, for sure. That's awesome. And like in the same note, what also really stood out to me, it said that like God will use like strengths and weapons that you already have to slay giants and get new ones. You know, David didn't have a sword at the time, but he had a slingshot, and God used his slingshot to acquire that sword. And yeah, I just thought that was so stinking cool. The way he like told the David and Goliath story, I'd like never heard it told that way before. It was super cool.
I was looking back through videos that I have, because I did record some of Pastor Manny,
Mm-hmm.
and I caught a good part that was talking about, he was going on his little prayer rant, it was awesome, but he said, to use our vocal cords, not your phone. Like that was such a big thing, that was like he's like, you can't text your way to victory. I think that was a quote. Like he said, you can't text your way to victory, you can't post your way to victory, you have to use the two vocal cords that God gave you. And just, words are so powerful. So it should give you a lot of faith that your words are very powerful instead of just a post. You know, 'cause like you said, anyone can post, which is great. Like post your faith all over social media, but back it up while you're in person around your friends. And it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. Anyone else? Chaser.
I thought it was weird how when he hit him in the head with a slingshot and he fell forward instead of back.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool.
And the meaning of him falling forward was for him to bow down to God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure everyone's jaw was on the floor.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, what?
The physics of the class.
I know.
I don't think anyone ever noticed that detail.
No.
We read through that story so many
I've heard
times.
that story like so many times and never would have thought of it.
Dude, and I always thought that when I was a kid, I always pictured the rock that David hit Goliath with to be like tiny.
Yeah, me too.
No, the rocks are big. They're like the size of a tennis ball. Yeah, so think about that. If you're throwing a rock-sized or tennis ball-sized rock at 90 miles an hour and hit you in the head, you would definitely fall backwards.
Right.
Like,
And maybe
that's crazy.
fly back.
Yeah.
I mean, Goliath was a big chungus, so I don't
He
know.
was a unit of a boy.
He was like 9 feet tall. He was a Nephilim. If you guys remember the Angels and Demons series like 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big old dingus. Anyone else? On that note?
Oh. My bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, if no one else has anything else to say, then you guys can grab your seat. Give yourself a round of applause and give God a round of applause. Oh, hey, you guys want to know something really funny?
Yes, sir.
Apparently the music was so loud in here that we shook part of the ceiling off. There's a ceiling part.
We don't even have our subwoofers yet.
Yeah, we don't have yeah, so for those of you guys that don't know, Nephilim is Hebrew for big chungus dingus.
Oh, my.
No. I don't know. That'd be pretty funny though if it was, right? That would be pretty funny if it was. Don't mind this thing. I'm just gonna leave it here for a second. What?
Bring out the box.
Don't mind that.
I'm gonna mind it.
It's just a chair, you know.
It's a chair. That's a nightstand. That's a nightstand, buddy.
For pictures, you know.
Picture.
You know.
Put
So,
a background.
as I was saying before I stopped myself, the name, like the theme of the live conference this year was Invade. Invade had a dope lightning bolt thing. It's a song they wrote for it. You know. So the title tonight's like, I'm going to keep the sermon a little bit shorter though, is called Invade. It's called Invade. Now, when I think of the word invade, I think of aliens.
Yes.
I mean, that's just what pops into my head is aliens. How many of you guys like sci-fi movies? I think they're so cool. So one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie of all time, is Interstellar. And it's not really about aliens, but dude, it's so good. It's like so trippy. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm going to show you guys some of my favorite aliens. We're going to put them on the screen. If we can get the first one up there. How many of you guys know what that is?
You can wait up there.
Raise your hand if you know who that is. What's his name?
Stitch.
Stitch.
The cutest alien ever.
So before I got Lilo, I wanted to get a boy dog, and if I was going to get a boy dog, I was going to name it Stitch. But then I got a girl dog, so I was like, well, I can't name a girl Stitch. So I had to go Lilo. But I love Stitch. He's like my spirit animal, my spirit alien.
Spirit alien.
Just a little crackhead who just causes destruction, likes loud things. All right, let's get the next one up there. How do you guys know who these are?
Oh!
A stranger from the outside.
Toy Story.
Yeah. Yeah, look at those little
Our Father.
Yeah. Who's the first person that comes to mind when you look at these guys?
Potato head, whatever.
My uncle.
When I look at these guys, I just think of Drake Bowman.
Yes, Drizzy.
No, I'm just kidding. I mean, come on.
That's
I mean,
dumber and dumber.
I mean, Drizzy? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, let's get the next one out there.
Yeah,
Yoda.
it's Grogu.
I know. I was gonna ask you guys if you knew his real name.
It's Grogu.
It's Grogu.
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 Mandalorian.
Now he's off with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I don't care. Let's get the next one out there. This one,
Oh,
Yeah.
Is that a-
Yeah.
how many of you guys know who that is?
Gremlin.
Or know what that
It's
is?
a gremlin, isn't it?
Nobody?
Is it a gremlin?
War of the Worlds.
No.
War of the Worlds.
No.
What?
War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg.
I helped us pick that one. I didn't want
Yes,
to say
it
it.
is.
Really. Yes.
It's such a good movie. I had to throw a couple scary ones in there.
Y'all better know the next one.
Terrifying.
Y'all better movie. All right, let's get the next one on there. Tiffany's in here.
What the heck?
She's here. How many of you guys know who that is? You guys had better know who that is. I'm gonna whoop some tails. Who is it?
I've seen him.
Iron Giant.
You all better know.
His real name though?
I forgot about that shit.
I'll
His
be
real
honest.
name though is Giant Communist Dumpster.
Giant
We love the Iron Giant. We love that movie. It's so good. All right, let's get another one up there.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
That is. Yeah. That's a thick boy. That's like alien Bigfoot. Doesn't it look like Bigfoot?
It looks like you.
Hey, low key.
Peyton kind of looks like a Bigfoot.
Your legs are too small.
You're gonna have a long head.
I do have a long head. Look at this thing.
Oh!
My head is like Indiana Jones' Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. No, I'm just kidding. Sort of, not really. Hey, Oliver though? You know Ollie?
Oliver's gonna.
Oh my God!
Hey, AKA Young Blue 23 Jr. Abby Sadaka knows who he is. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Getting it mixed up on you. He's not
Oh, wow. You're right. I messed up. Alright, moving on. Next. There we go. E.T. Boom. Look at that crusty looking boy. Yo, he looks like a turd that was left outside in the sun with eyes.
Oh my God! That's my grandma!
Shut up, Gabe.
That's what my grandma looks like! You got the scratchy eyes.
Hey, how many of you guys were scared by E.T. when you were a kid?
I'll be honest. I'll be completely honest.
What?
You know that episode of SpongeBob when they're selling chocolate and then
Yeah!
Oh, that grandma! She's still alive though.
They're selling chocolate.
I can't do that. That's my throat. I'm trying to do the E.T.
Stop laughing.
You know when they're like when Elliot's in the cornfield with the light, and he shines it on E.T.'s like. Dude, I was so scared, bro. The light shining up, he was like scared, like. It was so scary, bro. I peed my pants every time when I was up until I was like in 7th grade. All right, next.
Look at his feet. That's not alien! That is not alien!
That's not
He's not alien.
Yes, he
No, he's
is.
not!
He's literally
not! He's not alien!
He's not a human and he's not from Earth. Therefore, he's an alien. He's an alien. Guys, Gabe tried to prove me wrong and he proved himself wrong. He's a turd. All right.
Okay,
Next.
love you too, Peyton.
All right.
Ryan, how do you
We gotta have a vote between baby Groot, teenage Groot, and adult Groot.
Teenage
Raise your
Groot.
hand if you like baby Groot the most.
Nope, get out of here.
Yeah, bro.
Yo,
He dances.
If you like teenage Groot the most, raise your
Teenage
hand.
Groot, he cusses in groups.
If you like adult Groot the most, raise your hand.
Oh.
Wow.
If you did. Wow. Wow. Uncultured. You're
All right.
uncultured.
Teenage Groot won. I hate teenage Groot.
Wow, screw you,
Dude,
Peyton.
he's just a fart cracker.
Ryan. Ryan.
Alright, we got a couple more. Next. How many of you guys know what that's from?
Aliens.
Alien. Yeah, dude, I remember when I was a kid, when I was in 6th grade, my mom never let me watch rated R movies, so I always went over to my friend's house and watched them because he had older brothers. And I would watch all the Alien and all the Predator movies. Scared the poop out of me. Yeah. I didn't sleep for like 3 days. Yeah. Because they had all those things. They're scary looking, right? But yeah, is there any more or was that the last one?
Last one.
That was the last one?
Yeah.
Alright. So
His head is like 2 feet long.
we'll go back, we'll get the scary thingy off. He looks like a
Oh, snake.
he's funky looking.
Where do you keep going?
So aliens. I know we just spent like 10 minutes looking at pictures of
Should we go
aliens,
back and
but
look at him again?
you know what? That was
Yay! Yay! Oh, where'd that go?
So aliens, like I said, when I think of the word invade, I think of aliens, like an alien invasion. And usually when aliens invade the earth, they invade it by force, right? You think of like War of the Worlds. Alec, you've seen that.
That's
So,
an F-bomb.
they come and then Tom Cruise says in the movie that it's an extinction, right? They come and they invade by force. They're taking over, they're kicking butt, and they're taking names. Now, tonight, I want to talk about heaven invading earth. Alright, we're going to listen up now. We're no more joke-a-moking. So, invade is actually a biblical word, and I didn't know that. But invade is actually a biblical word, and it doesn't mean by force. The biblical phrase invade doesn't mean by force. It's not that when heaven invades the earth, Jesus and his angels aren't going to come down here and yeet everybody, throwing them around. I mean, that does happen in Revelation. Spoiler alert. It's going to get messy. But that's not what it's talking about right now when the Bible talks about heaven invading the earth. That's not how God wants to do it. He doesn't want to come and invade by force, and Satan doesn't actually do that either. But sometimes, it can seem like Satan invades with force, right? It seems like, there's nothing I can do right now. Satan is just having his way with me, and there's just nothing I can do in this situation. Like we can't help it. It seems like he's conquered things in our life, and it's like, all right, we got to conquer them back. I got to go to the Alive conference so I can conquer these things back that Satan has conquered in my life. But the reality is, Satan isn't big enough or strong enough to just single-handedly and forcefully impose his will on you and take these things in your life. That's just the reality. He's not equal to God. He's not the opposite of God because he's so much lesser. He's a punk. He's a sucker. He's like nothing compared to God. And now Satan, he has land in our lives, but not because he gained that land in our lives, but it's because we gave it to him. We can get that up on the screen. Satan has land in our lives not because he's gained it, but because we gave it. We forfeited it to him.
That's good.
And Satan has a presence in your life, but just because he's present in your life doesn't mean that he has power in your life. He only has power when we give him permission. When we say yes to that fear, yes to that temptation, yes to that lie that he's told us. Now it says in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26, it says, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you were still angry." Sorry, I was looking up at the lightning. "Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold." Do not give the devil a foothold. The key word, give there. Do not give the devil a foothold. Don't give Satan an opportunity to defeat you. That's why Satan's main attack isn't force. He's not imposing his will on you. He doesn't come in and just beat your head into submission. He doesn't just show up with a stick and he's like, "You're a turd, Aiden. You suck."
You're a
He doesn't
turd,
come and just beat you up. That's not the way the devil works. He lies to you and he convinces you to give him permission to do these things in your life. He doesn't take that permission from us. We give it to him. And we're going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to show you scripture that kind of defends that. So tonight, invasion, that's kind of what we're talking about. In what areas of your life have you given to Satan? In what areas of your life have you listened to the lies of Satan? Have you listened to the temptation of Satan and you've given those things to him? Maybe it's school friends. Maybe it's your relationships. Maybe it's your time with God. Maybe it's your addictions, your fears, your anxieties, your insecurities. What are things in your life that you've given to Satan? Things that you have freely given to him. And I get so frustrated sometimes, especially being a youth pastor, when I need to hear, people just venting or whatever. And they say things like, they're blaming Satan for things that we do. They're like, "Oh man, Satan just did this and he did that," and we give him too much credit and we give Satan too much power because, it's not that he did that. I hear so many people be like, "Oh, Satan did this." Like, no, Satan didn't do this. You did this. You allowed it. You gave the devil permission to do that. And on the other end of it, God also doesn't invade by force. In the same way, and that's not because God can't. I'm not saying that God isn't powerful enough. God is powerful enough, and God can do that. But he chooses not to. He chooses not to. We see this in Revelation chapter 3,
Verse 20, it says, "Here I am." This is Jesus talking. It says, "I stand at the door and knock." I stand at the door and knock. "If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person, and they with me. To the one who is victorious, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat down with my Father on his throne." So, if someone wanted to break into your house, and someone wanted to take your stuff, say someone wanted to come in and they wanted to steal Lilo, they wanted to steal my gaming computer, you think they'd be like,
Yes.
"Pay in. Pay in. Let me in.
Has the pet in?
Pass the pay in. Give me your stuff."
Give me the
No, they wouldn't do that, right? They wouldn't invade through force. Heaven invades through faith. Heaven invades through faith. We say, heaven invades by us saying, "Yes, God. Yeah, I trust you. God, I choose you. God, I want to love you. God, I want you to come into my life. I want to open up my door and have you come into my life. I want you to invade my entire life." And guys, Jesus is standing at the door tonight, and he is knocking. Jesus is knocking. He's saying things like, "I love you. I have so much more for you." He's sitting there and he's knocking on the door. He's just saying, just let me in. Just stop shutting me out. But we don't like to live like this. We don't want Jesus to come into our door and have access to every single thing in our lives. We don't act like Jesus is sitting here and knocking at the door in our life. Instead of us imagining that Jesus is knocking at the door, we're imagining that he's knocking on a dresser. Instead of knocking at a door, he's knocking on a dresser. And there's things in this dresser. We act like our life is a dresser. There's things in this dresser. So Jesus is knocking, and there's things in there like sports. We've got sports in our life, and we're like, Jesus, I don't know. I mean, this drawer is pretty special to me. It's pretty important. I don't think I can give that to you. I got this. I got sports that prevent me from going to church, or my sports is getting in between me and my time with God. No, God, I can't give that to you. You can't have this drawer. Or maybe it's a hobby. Whatever that may be, whatever it is that's keeping you from God. Like, I don't know, God, that's pretty important to me. That's pretty special. I don't know if I can give that to you. Hey God, you can have this drawer of my life. You can have my family life. Yeah, my parents, they're Christian. My brothers, my sisters, they're Christian. You can have that. Yeah, you can have this drawer. My church life. Yeah, hey God, I'm gonna do you a favor. Wednesdays, I'll come to church on Wednesday nights. That's all right. I don't have anything better going on Wednesday nights. I'll give you a couple Sundays a month. God, I'll give you a favor. You can have that drawer, but God, just don't touch this one. Okay? This one's mine. This is my life. Maybe there's groups. Maybe you got a friend group where they're not Christian, and you keep on inviting them to church, and A, they don't go, and B, they try and talk you out of going to church. And you're like, what, God, no, I really don't want to cut ties with those people. They're my really good friends. Maybe it's teams. Maybe you've got some teams. And guys, by the way, I wanted to get my tall dresser in here. That way I didn't need to crouch down. It was too heavy. Sorry about my nightstand. Maybe you've got some teams in your life that are pulling you away from God. I'm just going to pull all these out. That way I don't need to keep on doing them. Maybe it's your school life. Maybe your school life and your church life are completely different. They're completely different drawers. You're a completely different person at school. And there's probably people in this room who know exactly what I'm talking about. They're like, oh yeah, they're a completely different person here on Wednesday night than they are when I see them at school. And you're like, you know what, God? I'll give you my church friends, but my school friends, no. Yeah, I can sit here and I can raise my hands with my friends here at church, but I would never do that with my friends from school. Maybe you got friends that are just rotten. They're just rotten friends. They're not life-giving. They don't lift you up. They're just absolute turds. You're like, no, God, you can't have my friends. I got to keep that in there. Maybe your boyfriend or your girlfriend. That can be a tough one. That can be a tough one to give up. No, seriously. There are so many people that I've been close with in my life, where I've had like a really good relationship with them, and I have the opportunity and the closest that person where I can be real with them, and I'm like, bro, or sis, he's not good for you. No, seriously, like you're changed now. Like he's getting you to do these things that you know you shouldn't be doing. You know, he sits there and he flexes his muscles, and you're like, oh, he's so hard. Or boys, it's like, you know you shouldn't be doing those things you're doing, and God tells you, and He convicts you on Wednesday nights, and He's like, it's not good for you. You shouldn't be doing that. It's like, oh, but God, I don't know. I'm having too much fun. You know, I'll settle down and maybe when I get out of high school, I'll stop whiling out. But no, for now, no. It's not that big of a deal. Maybe it's your future plans.
Yeah.
Maybe you're at a live conference and God called you into ministry and you didn't want to do that and you were too scared, so you didn't want to tell anybody because you're like, I don't know. I don't really want to do that. There's not a ton of money being a pastor. There's not a ton of money being a missionary. You know, I want to do this, I want to do that, so I'm just going to put it down. I'm going to put it back in this drawer that I'm not going to let God come into. Maybe it's your mistakes or your past sins. Maybe it's an addiction that you've been struggling with for so long, and finally you just gave up. You're like, you know what, God, I just gave up. I'm not even gonna try anymore. You know what? No. You can't do that. Or maybe it's secret sins. It's the sins that nobody knows about, and you pretend that God doesn't know. Everyone in here, whether you struggle with it now or in the past, everyone's had secret sins in their life. You guys know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's things that you don't tell anybody because maybe you're ashamed of it. You know, maybe you think, you know, if I tell someone, they're going to judge me. You know, so I'm just not going to tell anyone, and I'm going to hide it. I'm going to pretend that God doesn't know, and I'm just going to keep that secret. So you keep all these things in these drawers. And guys, I imagine to have like 5 drawers. But you compartmentalize your life, and you give certain things to God. You allow God to have access to some things in your life. In some drawers of your life, you're like, no, God, stay out of that. You can't have that. But guys, that's not what Jesus is asking for. Jesus is saying, I want an open door, not an open drawer. Yeah. He wants access to everything. He wants it all. But so often we just give Him a drawer of our life. We just give Him a part of our life. Something that we're comfortable with giving Him access to. But that's not what Jesus is saying here. In the scripture, He doesn't say, here I am knocking on one of your dresser drawers. Open it up and give me part of your life. No, He says, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in. He'll come in to the house, not into the drawer, into the whole house. Not just a piece. And guys, the best thing you can do is give God full access to your life. Hudson Taylor, who's a famous missionary, said, Christ is either Lord of all or not Lord at all.
That's good.
Christ is either Lord of all or He's not Lord at all. And giving God a dresser, like a drawer in your dresser of your life, that's not giving full control to God. That's not being a king or a master or a lord of your life, because you're in control. When you give God just one drawer, you're like, no. This is mine. I'm in control. God, I'm not ready to give you full control. That's not really having God being the Lord of your life. In Ephesians chapter 3, Paul writes, I pray that out of His glorious riches He may strengthen you with power through His Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ. So guys, our bodies are described as a house by God. How many of you guys have ever heard the phrase, my body is a temple?
Yeah.
How many of you guys have ever heard that? Turn to your neighbor and say, my body is a temple. My body is a temple. Guys, the Bible says that Jesus will He'll make our bodies like a house. He'll make our bodies a house that He lives inside of. He lives in us. He dwells in us. The Greek word means dwell. And that word specifically means to live, like to live in a house permanently. To remain, and it's got 2 definitions. It means either to remain or to occupy. So when Jesus dwells in us, When we invite him into our house, he dwells in us. He remains in us. He occupies it. He wants to occupy the whole house. The word occupy means two things. It means to either consume or control. So Jesus wants to consume us and he wants to control us. And that sounds kind of harsh, right? Especially in this culture, we're like, Jesus wants to control me. It's like, heck no. That's the word that I feel like this culture hates more than anything. We don't want anyone to control us, no matter what, right? But when we give God permission to invade our lives, we give him access to our entire house, even the creepy attic. You guys have ever been in my house? My attic's kind of weird.
Yep.
Or the really creepy basement, the place where we don't go, we don't let anyone else go. Giving God complete authority and complete, the ability to completely consume and control our lives. That's what happens when we let God inside. The Bible describes God as a consuming fire. Nothing in our house when we let God inside is left untouched. It's all consuming. God is all consuming. He wants to consume your life, and he doesn't just stop there. It says that when he's consumed us, he controls us. And like I said, you guys probably don't like to hear that. God, I don't want you to control me. I don't want to let you in. I just want to keep you in my drawer. I just want to keep you in the place that I'm comfortable with. I don't want you to do that. But when you really understand what it means, when you really understand what the word control means in this context, it's really the most beautiful and powerful and correct thing. Guys, the best thing that you can do in your life is to let God control you. And some of you may be sitting there, why should I let God control me? Why should I do that? I'm doing a pretty good job. I'm doing me over here. I come to church 3 times a month. I read my Bible every once in a while. I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing me. Why would I let God control my life? It says in Hebrews, it says, I really like this translation. It puts it in, it makes it easier to read. Do you see what we've got? An unshakable kingdom. And do you see how thankful we must be? Not only thankful, but brimming with worship, deeply reverent before God. For God is not an indifferent bystander. He's actively cleaning house, torching all that needs to burn, and he won't quit until it's all cleansed. God himself is fire. So when we invite God into our lives, when we're like, all right, God, I'm going to open the door. I'm not going to open it up because it might be stinky in there. When we open up the door to let God into our lives, it says he's an all-consuming fire. It says he's not an indifferent bystander. He's actively cleaning house. He's cleaning out all of the junk and all of the filth and all of the sin in our life. Guys, you might be sitting there and you're like, man, I've struggled with the same sin for so long. And no matter how many times I pray about it on Wednesday nights, I just can't seem to get any better. Why do I still have pain? Why do I still have anxiety and depression? I'm confused. God, where are you? It's because you haven't let him in. You haven't let him in the door. You've been compartmentalizing God into a drawer of your life. Because it says that when we let God in, it says he's actively cleaning house, torching all that needs to burn. And he won't quit until it's all cleansed. He won't quit until it's all cleansed. God himself is fire, an all-consuming fire. And I love that. But some of you might be like, but God, why? Why my house? God, why do you have to invade my house? How many of you guys go to church on Sundays here? Raise your hand. How many of you guys remember the Hosea vow? The series that Pastor Phil preached on? And for those of you who weren't there, or maybe you heard it, but you're like, oh man, 10 o'clock's really early on Sundays. I was kind of asleep. Yes, sir. I'm just going to summarize the story of Hosea. So Hosea, he was a prophet. He was an Old Testament prophet, right? And, he was a really, really popular guy. Anyone in Israel at the time would have known who he was. He was like the prophet, like the pastor. Everyone knew him. He was super popular. And God says, Hosea, I want you to do something. I want you to go and do something. And Hosea's like, yeah, bro, I'm a prophet, whatever. I'll do whatever you want. And then God's like, I want you to marry a prostitute. Hosea's like, hold up, yeah, I saw some of your heads. Like, what? I'm paying attention now, prostitute. Yeah, God's like, I want you to marry a prostitute. And Hosea's like, hold up, what? Why would I do that? And God's like, I want you to marry someone who's sinful, someone who isn't faithful. I want your marriage to represent my relationship and my marriage to Israel. And he went and married this chick named Gomer. Say Gomer. Gomer. How many of you guys would like to name your daughter Gomer? Not me. That's a hideous name. So, anyways, Hosea marries this prostitute named Gomer. Woof. And they end up building a beautiful life together, right? They're married for the Bible doesn't say how long they were married for, but it says they had 3 kids. So you'd assume if they had 3 kids, they were married for several years, right? And the marriage is going well. But Hosea wakes up one day, and it says that he looks over, and Gomer's not there. Gomer's not in bed with him. And, he starts looking around for her. He's probably asking his kids, have you seen Mom anywhere? He's maybe asking his servants, have you seen my wife anywhere? I don't know where she is. And nobody knows where she is. And sooner or later, he probably got the idea where she had gone to. She had gone back to that part of her life, back to that part of town, that old sin, that old compartment, that old betrayal, to prostitution. And you can only imagine the pit in your stomach that Hosea probably had when he realized that his wife had gone back to do that. And God says, go find her. Go find your wife, the mother of your kids. And Hosea goes looking for his wife, in places of town that a man of God should never be. And he's probably just asking people, have you seen my wife? Have you seen my wife? The mother of my kids, I don't know where she is. And, finally one guy's probably like, yeah, I've seen her. She's over there. And it says that Hosea goes over and Gomer is being auctioned off to the highest bidder for some guy to just have his way with her. You can only imagine the way that Hosea probably felt when he sees his wife, the mother of his kids being auctioned off to some disgusting men who are trying to just buy her for their satisfaction. And it says Hosea runs up and he goes, no, stop, that's my wife. No, absolutely not. I can prove it. I can prove that I'm married to her. Knock it off. And the guy who's auctioning her off says, I don't care who you think she is, that's her price. And Hosea, he pays that price. Yeah. He pays for something that was already his. And I'm going to invite the worship team to come back up. And God uses this story about Hosea going and paying for his unfaithful wife and buying her back when he already owned her. She was already his. This he uses as a way to illustrate the way that he's reaching out to his kids. Who, we've forsaken him. There's so many times that we've messed up, that we've ran away from him. God's saying, I'm seeking you. And even though you messed up, even though you've done these things that are just, we're looking at that from an outsider, and we're like, how could she ever do that? How could she ever, run away from a loving husband who's given her everything? If he was the prophet of Israel, he probably had it made. He's a man of God, she's got kids with him. How could she do that? But in the same way, God probably thinks that way about us. He's like, I love you so much. I will literally make your life better in every single way. When you come and you let me into your life, I'm an all-consuming fire. I torch all of these bad, these wicked things in your life, and everything is better. Why do you turn back to your old stuff, your old crap? And tonight, guys, Jesus, he's doing the same thing for you. Jesus is standing at the door and he's knocking. And he's saying, hey, I know that there's things in your life that you ran away with. There's parts of your life that you've been compartmentalizing. Maybe it's your friends. Maybe it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Maybe it's a hobby or a sports team. Whatever it is, there's things in your life that you've been keeping me out of. You've been trying to compartmentalize me and put me in a box. You try and only worship me. You try and only talk to me and only pray on Wednesday nights. I want all 7 days. I want your whole week. I want your whole life. He's standing there knocking. And, some of you guys, like I was saying earlier, there's some of you guys that maybe get frustrated sometimes with God. You know, kind of like Manny was saying, there's things that maybe you've been praying about for so long, but you haven't given God full control. And you're wondering, man, why haven't I seen breakthrough in this? How come I wake up every single day and I'm depressed? How come I wake up every single day and I've got anxiety? How come I can't see victory over this in my life? Why don't I have any good friends? How come it seems like I go to school and I'm lonely? Or I come home and I don't feel fulfilled? It's because you haven't given God full access to your life. Guys, I'm speaking to myself right now. Because there's been so many times in my life where I've tried to compartmentalize things, where I felt convicted about things, where I felt like God was really speaking to me and challenging me to make a change in my life. And I'm like, I don't know, God. I have a lot of fun with that. You know, for a time it was a certain friend group. They were rotten friends, but man, I had so much fun with them. And it seemed like every single time that I would pray, I feel like the Holy Spirit was just, you know, God was sitting there knocking at the door. He was sitting there knocking. He wasn't going to make me stop being friends with them by force, but he was like, hey, you know that's not good for you. Let me come in. Let me cleanse that area of your life. And I compartmentalized it. And I tried to keep God out of that part of my life, and it never turned out well. You know, it would always end up in something bad happening, and there's so many other parts of my life that I can't even sit here and tell you about all of them, because that list would go on and on. All the times that I've tried to compartmentalize parts of my life. I've tried to give God a drawer. You know, I'd be sitting there in middle school or high school, up at the altar on my hands and knees. My God, I just want you. You're all that I want. And then God would be like, all right, give me this. I'd be like, I don't know, God. You know, you can have everything just except for this. You know, let me hold on to that. Jesus is asking you tonight to give him everything. And I know that every single person in this room, that there's something in your life that you're probably holding on to. There's things in my life that I want to hold on to. I'm just going to encourage you guys. Guys, Jesus died and he paid the price for us. He paid the price for our sin when he already owned us. God created us. He holds everything in his hands. He already owned us, but he still went and died for our sin. He paid the price for someone that he already owned. Paul writes in Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, we get that on the screen, he says, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore honor God with your bodies. And we also see in Galatians, it says, we get that on the screen, Galatians chapter 2, it says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Guys, Jesus is knocking tonight. He's sitting there, he's knocking at the door. He's standing there, he's waiting for you to answer. He's standing outside of a house that he already owns, a house that he's already paid the price for. And he's waiting, he's saying, hey, I want you back. Hey, I know that there's all these times that you messed up. I know there's all these times that you ran away. There's all these things you've tried to keep me out of. I want you back. I still love you. I still want to come in your life and transform it from the inside out. I'm going to encourage you guys to stand up and just for the next 5-10 minutes, whatever it is, I'm just going to encourage you guys just to be real with God. Just bow your head and close your eyes right now. And just listen to God's voice, because I believe that he's speaking tonight. Because the Bible says that he's standing there knocking. So God, right now I pray that as we're all standing here in your presence, God, because we believe that your presence is in this room. God, I pray that we would hear your knocking, and I pray that we would let you in. God, I pray that we wouldn't just give you an open drawer to our life, God, but I pray that we would open up that door. God, I pray that we would give you full access, God, to everything in our lives. God, maybe if we've got 6 drawers in our life, we've given you access to 5 of them, but there's one that we're still holding on to, or maybe we've only given you access to 1. God, I pray that we wouldn't hold anything back from you. There would be nothing in our lives that we're holding back from you. God, whether that's our friends, maybe that's a boyfriend or a girlfriend, maybe it's an addiction, maybe it's anxiety, it's an insecurity, whatever it is that we're holding on to, whatever it is that we're keeping from you, God, I pray that we would just surrender that to you. God, you won't come in and you won't take anything unless we allow you to take, God. So I pray that right now that we would just every single one of us would be willing to open up that door to you. May we not hold on to these things anymore. And I pray that as you come into our lives, that you would come and just be an all-consuming fire. That you would come and just clean house of these things that we've been struggling with for so long. God, we just invite you to do what only you can do tonight. Come here and just have your way in our lives. God, we thank you in advance for what you're going to do.